opening workshop in the Future stream, and we've got an architect of the future with me in Michael Wood, the Chief Technology Officer of Receipt Bank, and we have another accountant who's carving a future of his own and for other firms, Stephen Paul from Valued Solutions today, or Valued Accountancy Services?
Just settle for Valued, I think.
Just from Stephen from Valued. See what he's done there? He's got a brand, so the Valued brand. So Stephen and Michael are going to help me sort of explore the future. This is as interactive as possible. Though if you really want to be a challenger, one of the best ways to do it is ask good questions. So if you want to challenge us on any points or get us to clarify anything, please put your hand up. My two colleagues at the back have got microphones, and they'll be circulating the audience. So just put your hand up, and one of them will come to you. And the reason we want it's not just so other people in the audience can hear you, but we're taping today's session, so that'll then mean that your question will be recorded on the video too. Now, have many of you undertaken something we called the Cloud Challenge that we've been doing with Receipt Bank? Is anyone familiar with that? Can I have hands up? A couple? Okay, we were basically trying to categorize the types of accountancy firm that will evolve in the future. And we had the classic caretaker firm that really looks after its clients. We have compliance factories that are really process-driven and efficient. There's the niche technical specialists who maybe work in a particular sector. I'm trying to think the other ones, Michael, the niche. And of course, the challenger firm. Those are the main ones. And that's all about sort of just getting you to recognize your strengths. And those strengths, the practitioner, you try and build your firm around those strengths. But also actually, sometimes I like to say an accountancy firm isn't defined as much by its staff and the partners as by the clients. So we want to explore not just the processes within firms and in the wider technological and social sphere, but actually the things working on clients, their needs, how their changes. So say Stephen and Michael will help us chart that adventure. I talked about the Valued brand, but maybe just to introduce yourself, could you tell us about Valued and more about the kind, which firm do you think you fall into?
I think that's a tricky question, to be honest. I'll start with I'm Stephen, the owner, founder of Valued Accountancy Services originally 4.5 years ago. We decided we wanted to become a cloud-based firm. I think Heather mentioned the reasons in her talk there. My mum got terminal cancer, and I wanted to be able to deal with my clients no matter where I was in the world, so whether I was on holiday or I was sitting and looking after my mum at the time. I acquired some clients from my old partnership, decided I wanted to grow the business by about 20%. Happy with that. I was going to close the doors, and that was basically me set for the next however many years. That worked up until week 6. At that point, we hit that 20% growth, and since then, we've grown dramatically. We currently employ, there's 15 of us in the team now. Valued Accountancy Services shrank, so to speak. It became Valued Accountancy, and now it's just gone to Valued, because one of the things that we do is, because we have grown so much using Xero, using other related add-on products there as well, we're actually going into other accountancy firms and helping them to change their business journey. And we probably spend about 30% of our time doing that now, which has really transformed the business. So hence, it's gone to just Valued.
I think that probably puts you in the cloud pioneer camp, or possibly the challenger firm. So maybe I'd be quite interested in the questions you ask some of your accounting clients. Well, we could maybe go into those later.
Certainly.
Now, Michael, you've helped build this application that's kind of sweeping through the profession. Your Receipt Bank's very interesting because you sort of get into the hands of the client quite a lot, but you're also catering for the accountant and bookkeepers who are receiving the data. Well, where did that come from? What was sort of the story behind it? What was your inspiration, and what need were you trying to fulfill?
It did come from a slightly odd place. I was one of the first people in the UK with my limited company to be using cloud accounting. So this was in about 2007. My business was doing its accounting in the cloud. And I've worked out, speaking to all different people, I was sort of one of the first 100 businesses in the UK to be doing so. And what I realised is that cloud accounting isn't just a change of product. It isn't just desktop accounting in the cloud. it requires both the client and the business to change their workflows. And the big gap that became immediately obvious to me as a client was this idea of what to do with all the cost documents, the credit notes, the invoices, the receipts. They were sitting on my desk. I could sit there and key them in. That wasn't much fun. I could send them to my accountant and pay someone to key them in. That didn't seem to make much sense. And it felt like there was a real need for automation to do that. So that was why I looked around for a solution, came across a business called Receipt Farm. Receipt Farm had a nice, simple solution. It was, we will send you an envelope every month. You put your receipts in the envelope, send it back. We will scan them and give the data to you available online. I thought, fantastic, this works really well. This is exactly what I need. And I did the free trial. I liked it. But then the problem was I realized that the data was sitting there in Receipt Farm. My accountant was over there, and my cloud accounting package was there, and all three weren't talking to each other. So I wrote into customer service of Receipt Farm, said, guys, love what you're doing. Are you going to share access to the accountant and the bookkeeper, because they are key to this process? And are you going to be able to send the data automatically into the accounting package? They wrote back very quickly, very politely, it was good customer service. Mr. Woods, thank you very much for your suggestions, but we're closing down today. I was a bit frustrated at this. This was my solution. This was my this was the problem I had. So I decided to buy it. Possibly not the most normal response to a customer service response, but there was some sense to it. And that was previously I'd helped to build an accounting practice over about 5 years. And I knew not just that cloud accounting was coming, but I knew cloud accounting was going to become the default. It was going to become essential. And so I knew how many accounting practices struggled with their traditional workflows. I knew what an imperative cloud accounting would become, and felt this was a really exciting business to build. And 5 years ago, my business partner and I started it. And very much like Stephen, we didn't realize how big this would be. So we absolutely thought we were starting a UK business to help UK accountants and bookkeepers and their clients. Since doing that, since opening the doors, we've grown at 10% per month. So we're now we now have sales offices in Sydney, in Washington, in London. We have clients in more than 100 countries around the world. We're servicing accountants from Valued to Deloitte in Australia, to BDO in New Zealand, et cetera, et cetera. So we were taken by surprise at the beginning of how big this shift is and how much clients want these technologies. And so the last 5 years of us been trying to understand that and plan for the next 5 years and help our accountants and bookkeepers, give them the technologies they need and help them to understand how the technologies can be used.
Now, Michael, you're a classic technologist. I mean, you are the cloud
nerd is the phrase.
Cloud pioneer model, but I kind of like that. I've met so many practitioners in my field who love this stuff and actually do make that journey and become, cross over to the supplier side. But as I say, you've already gotten on that horse and ridden it. But what do you think are the, and you spotted the cloud coming. What are the things coming now that you think are shaping the practice landscape?
It's really interesting how so many of the tools are already out there to really change accounting and bookkeeping, and how few firms have actually picked them up. Or if they've picked them up, they've only picked them up for some clients, or they've picked them up and actually haven't done the big thing, which is change the internal workflows. So again and again, I speak to firms around the world who think they're taking advantage of cloud accounting because they swapped the old desktop product for one of the cloud products. Fantastic. Things like the bank feed and the single ledger do provide productivity advantages. But when this really takes off and when you get growth like Valued have, is because you've looked again at that how do we do things? How should we do things? So to answer your question, there is more coming, and the technology trends are only accelerating. The next two big things is HMRC really are gearing up for the cloud now. They're inviting us and other vendors to come in and experiment with their new softwares and things like that. So they are really going to be part of the cloud in a way they haven't yet been. Equally, the banks by 2017 will be a really big part of it. The kind of things that mean is, we've had bank feeds already taking statement data into the accounting packages. What we're going to see by 2017 is a much more dynamic relationship between the software you control for your clients and the bank. So it will be originating payments. It will be being able to sort of do live lending from the accounts. We talk about real-time accounting as the trend that's coming very, very soon. So there's a lot of tools out there that can be used and really need to be used, but there is a lot more still to come. And we think clients are going to go nuts for it. We think they're going to love it.
I'm not sure if people can see from there, but I'm suffering from device envy here because I've actually got an old analog system on my wrist, and I'm noticing, I think I'm looking at two Apple Watches there. Any other Apple Watches in the audience today? Well, okay. Surprised. Another techie at the back. It just prompts me. Do you guys think sort of the form factor, the devices and delivery of accountancy? I mean, will it become your relationship with your finances and your transactions, via something on your wrist, or more integrated yet? The wearable pen. I mean, how much do you pay attention to the device environment?
I think technology is just changing so much. You go back when I first started in accountancy 20 years ago, something like that now. We used to do everything pen and paper. We had one computer sitting in the room between four of us. And what did we do? We went on, did our year-end accounts. We sent each other an email just because we could. Now, if a client wants me, they'll generally text me. I've even got clients that send me messages through Facebook asking for advice. It's just, where does it stop? Where does it stop becoming that constant 24/7? And I think clients are using technology now, and we've got to adapt our firms to be able to do that, to be able to advise clients. I'm not quite sure where it's going to end up, but I think technology is really going to transform how we interact with clients. To give you an example, we've probably got about 70 clients now within the M25. We're a little firm based in Concert. It's probably a place nobody's heard in here. Not many people anyway. We've got no right to have clients in London, but we've got a lot of clients in London, and that's through our website, through our branding, through our name, and it's really, really working for us. Do we meet these clients? No, we don't. Yeah, they'll ring up, we'll engage them over the phone, we'll do a Google Hangout, a Skype meeting with them, a telephone discussion. 9 times out of 10, we won't actually physically meet the client. Clients don't want that anymore, in our experience. They actually want somebody that's going to give them the advice, real-time advice, as you say, as opposed to that perceived proactive advice that we've all been given for years. In reality, the technology is going to help us to deliver that real-time advice.
What is the mix between your practitioner clients, the technology advice kind of, or the process re-engineering advice you do for accountancy firms, compared to more traditional accountancy services? Is that fairly evenly balanced, or?
Valued Solutions was created 1.5 years ago, so it was nothing. It's now 30% of our turnover. It changes a lot because we take on a lot of new clients every week. We're averaging about 5 to 7 new clients per week now, which is absolutely fantastic for us. But we're getting more and more accounts ringing us up and saying, can you give me help? Can you give me support? We acknowledge we've made a lot of mistakes in the last 4.5 years, and some of them have been expensive money-wise, some of them have been expensive time-wise. Things like Receipt Bank. I remember even sitting next to you at dinner to make sure that we used Receipt Bank. We didn't, yeah. It took 3 points of contact from Receipt Bank for us to actually go, hang on, we really like this product. That was 2 years ago, I think it was, something like that now.
Yeah, 3, yeah.
So we look at it and we think, I really wish I'd done that on day one, as opposed to a year, 2 years down the line there. That's been a big opportunity for us.
We talked earlier about, the question was posed in a lot of this conference, the whole stream about advisory services. But I'm quite interested with your sort of technology-mediated relationship with clients. How do you do that thing of kind of beginning to work out where their pain points are and what the process problems are? How does that evolve? And also maybe how do you sort of design and present services that will appeal to them?
think the crucial thing is just talking to the client and actually listening. So don't go in with a preconceived idea of what every single accountant or business owner wants as well. The valued brand, why we got rid of the accountancy part, was we had other accountants that were saying, can you come in and train my clients on how to use the software? We haven't got the time, the experience, the inclination to do it in-house, so can you guys come in and do that as well? So we'll actually go in and we'll implement software and then pull out of that relationship apart from any support agreement that we've got there. So it's critical that we just ask questions. What pain have you got? Interview the team, but discuss with the team really, so it's not just at a director, MD level, it's actually the people on the ground, the people that have the pain points, and then present a solution. So there's 400 and odd add-ons in the Xero community. There's a lot out there. I don't want to go in with a preconceived idea that that's the best add-on for every single business we deal with, because it might not be.
So even though we've taken quite a technological slant at the subject, would you make the point then that it's the quality of your personal relationship that's foremost, but you're using the phone, every means you have to communicate with them.
So telephone, we use Google Hangouts a lot in our business. Skype, just because we want to pull all of our information into one place if we can. I don't think we'll ever get that, but we want to pull all of our information about a client into one place.
To see what's going to happen and what is happening to accounting, the best place to look is just to look at other industries, and see how other technology has changed other industries. And one I find really, really interesting, and it's sort of quite immediate to us all, is actually to look at banking. So most of the banks launched their online banking around 98, 99. And so previously it was clearly the branch network and then telephone banking. Telephone banking was about sort of early 90s. And where the banks got to, they got into a terrible problem with telephone banking because they destroyed their relationships. So they lost the relationships and began to move down a sort of technology route. Telephone banking was then overtaken in popularity by internet banking. Internet banking has now been overtaken in popularity by mobile banking. So mobile banking is now the most popular method by which people are interacting with their banks. So I think that's a fantastic data point there of how do people want to interact with financial data. That's fascinating to me. And a quick question, if another one to look at, is who here has used with any of the sort of, not necessarily an Apple Watch, but a Fitbit or any of the sort of fitness bands and things like that? So what they do is they sort of ping you every day, are you doing well? Are you doing badly? And things like that. And they do a fantastic job of interacting with you with very complex data sets of saying, are you doing well and are you doing badly? And so we think there's lots to learn from that. But there's no question technology is just going to go further and further in automating bookkeeping, in even automating accounting. But people do still want the relationship. And Stephen's absolutely right. And the key thing then is to look at what technology platforms enable you to have the relationship that your clients want to have with you. And the danger that people presume it is still a meeting. And the reality is a meeting is expensive for you and it's expensive for a client. And I think, Stephen, you know better than I have, there's a fragmentation of contact happening. Instead of spending a lengthy meeting once a quarter or even year end, it's that ability to have a 5-minute quick question there, a 15-minute catch up there. And so technology affects the sort of the communication you use as well as the services and products you sell. So I hope that's
Interesting. Are there any? Does anyone? We have a question down here.
And the biggest challenge to the cloud industry is the lack of training. While the people who have been innovative, Receipt Bank, Xero, everyone, Iris, have created these programs, it's so difficult for someone to find training. And I actually do believe that if there was a school, a college, or someone, I reckon they'd be permanently full for people to be taught, because the manuals are appalling. They create them, but there's no one to teach you. And the best you can do is a 20-minute webinar if you're lucky. And how is the cloud industry actually going to meet that demand, and what do you think it'll do about it? Because I do believe the cloud would have moved much faster had how to use the wretched thing being available. It's like having a car without the driving, without having driving lessons.
Well, this is someone who seems to be filling that gap, Stephen. How would you answer? Yeah.
I'll give you a card. I totally agree. To me, it goes back to basic education. And in the Northeast, we've got Sage as a major employer in the Northeast there. Every college teaches Sage. There's no colleges teach Zero, teach QBO, teach whichever cloud product, right? That teach Line 50. Is Line 50 going to be there in 5-10 years' time? Probably not. Not the way it's going to be now. But we're still educating the future employees, the future business people on how to use this outdated technology. So we've actually gone to the colleges and said, can we actually certify, can we teach your students how to do this? We'll do it in our own time, at our own expense. And we've gone off to Zero and said, can you guys help us to do this? So we're actually get people certified from day one.
But I think my question is, shouldn't Zero and Receipt Bank and people, I mean, I don't think Receipt Bank hold workshops or, shouldn't they be doing this to help their product and to help the industry as a whole? Yeah, you are a one person off who helps the 70 people or 70 or whatever, but what about the inventors themselves? I mean, Iris, I actually got Iris, and I'll give you my life example. I paid £1,600, asked them, they said, I will train you, don't worry. When I asked them to train you, they said, pay £1,000. I said, okay, I'll pay £1,000. And when it came to say, no, we can't offer you training, you just have to do it. Actually, I gave it up as a bad job. I would have had more pleasure flushing the money down the toilet because...
Okay, I guess if Michael can just, if you want to respond to that challenge, and we'll get back to some...
Yeah, so I think it is a very fair point, and I think there's various causes of it. There's just worth of touching on, and one of the causes is, you know, inevitably working in and around the product as we do, as being the builders and vendors of it. You very quickly forget actually how quickly the knowledge gap moves on, because you're in it every day, and you sort of, it becomes very difficult to remember actually this does this and this does this and why is that there and all those kind of things. So you have a sort of inherent sort of just, you're there. I think all of us are worried about the idea of charging for training, and and maybe that is actually what we just should do, and just because right now the economics struggle to pay for it, to be frank. And actually we've tried to do a lot with videos and help centres. And maybe you're right, and I'm interested in Stephen's example of it, is actually, you know, try to create low cost but effective training that it is cost neutral from everyone's perspective that works.
I mean, and the other question I do have is a personal relationship. Do you think that, okay, I'm a great cloud fan myself, Receipt Bank, all my clients are on Zero, and I don't take them if they refuse to go on Zero, actually, because it doesn't suit me otherwise. But do you think that personal relationships are still important? It's important to meet the client, have a relationship with him. So do you think it's important for accountants to be the finance directors rather than compliance factories?
I think it's absolutely critical that you have a personal relationship with your client. One of the biggest frustrations that I have, you touched on the questions that I'll ask accountants when I actually do consultancy with them, is what sort of relationship do you have with your client? There's too many accountancy firms, in my opinion, now, are hearing that you've got to get on the cloud, you've got to use the software, and are just putting the software in place and expecting it to change their business, their lives, their clients' lives overnight. It doesn't. It's based around the personality, it's based around the individuals in that business, and actually helping them and finding out what they need in their business to actually to develop, to grow. It's not good enough to just put software in there, so you've got to have the relationships with the clients. I think it's changed from where I would have to sit with a client face to face. I think that bit's changed. I'm not quite sure where that's going to end up. I've already mentioned clients texting me at silly o'clock in the morning and Facebook and things like that, or tweets or whatever it might be. But I think we're in danger of putting too much emphasis on technology and losing the relationships.
Technology is a key part of enabling that, and actually you're right that the whole move to things like telephone banking, etc., took the personal service out of it, but we've now got to the point where technology is actually, the internet and everything, is putting the personal service back into it and allowing you to differentiate on service. So yes, the face-to-face meetings are important, but as you've pointed out, those interim discussions, which can be Facebook, Google Hangouts or whatever, it's allowing you multiple touch points, which allows you to talk to your client, understand their requirements, and technology has to be part of that mix.
I think that's right. There's a very interesting situation developed in Australia in the last sort of couple of years. So the industry in Australia is much more split of you have accountants and bookkeepers, and the firms are very separate. And so this provoked a lot of sort of angry discussions on LinkedIn and other forums about, does cloud kill the bookkeeper? Is the bookkeeping firm dead? And what was really bizarre about it was it would often be an accountant that would kickstart these conversations. And to us and Xero and others, it was a really bizarre conversation because normally the bookkeeper is the one who spends every week with the business owner, has a tremendously close personal relationship, and the accountant was seeing them at the end of the year, yes, with an impressive qualification, but actually in the world we're moving into, I'd much prefer to have the weekly contact with the client than the qualification. That's a much stronger position to be in. As you say, the technology does enable a stronger relationship, and so making sure your business model enables you to have that contact and not have your team sitting there looking at the clock, putting time up, all those things that can inhibit that communication and relationship building.
Stephen, the second half of the previous gentleman's question was about providing FD-style services. Is that part of your portfolio?
Yeah. When we first set up Valued, we had pretty much a compliance-based business. Yeah, we had less than 20 clients that we were, in effect, the advisor, the FD for. I wanted to keep it very small at that level because of the personal reasons in my life at the time. I didn't want to spend a lot of time. But by giving the clients the instant access to their accounts, very quickly clients will actually turn around and say, well, you're getting the efficiencies, you're getting the real-time information. Can you help me more? Can you help me to define my business, to grow my business, to develop it? And we've transformed from being a compliance-based business to actually an advisory one. So one of the things we do is we put our price on the website. It really works for us. It doesn't work for everybody, but it works for us. We'll actually, a client might ring up and say, I want the Valued Essentials package. By discussing the benefits of upselling to some sort of consultancy relationship, we'll normally double the fees on the initial engagement there. That really works for us. But I think more importantly, it's clients that we wouldn't have done advisory for in the past, clients that actually would have wanted a compliance-based service because they weren't interested in accounts, they weren't interested in the profit and loss, the balance sheet. All they cared about was what's my turnover, what's my drawing, and how much tax do I owe. Now these guys actually really want to develop the business, they want to grow the business because they actually understand the figures in their business. So that's really transformed it.
Is your move into that field, is it purely a kind of a pull factor? Like, is it always the clients coming to you and seeking more, or do you do things to sort of encourage them to think that way?
We'll always encourage them now. Always encourage them, yeah. At the beginning, I'll be honest, it was a pull factor. It was a massive pull factor because we didn't want a lot of clients like that because it came down to the time that I had, because I was the only qualified accountant in the practice. It came down to my time and my experience as opposed to the rest of the team's time and their experience. And I didn't want to be working 70 hours a week. I'm quite happy with me 28 hours that I work every week now, pretty much. I don't want lots and lots of clients like that, but the technology, things like the Xero management reports, Receipt Bank, Spotlight, Crunchboards, all the different products out there, they actually are easy to understand for non-qualified accountants as well, so they can prepare the consultancy work and then just pass that to one of us.
Can you maybe take us through, pick a sort of typical client, or maybe one who you have kind of grown into, take them through from the essentials to the more advanced types of service you offer. How have you stepped them through that, and how do you present the kinds of package and service you're offering to them? Is it just at the website, or how do you market? Because it is a marketing activity you're doing, but it sounds quite sort of organic. So how would you describe it evolving?
We get around about 80% of our new clients through the website, right? Through the website or word of mouth, about 80% word of mouth, and the balance is through the website there. Invariably, the word of mouths will have looked at the website, so they'll know what we're going to charge, when we're going to charge, before they actually ring us. We'll always try and upsell them, for want of a better phrase, or put some add-ons in there. Just from that initial point, we want to make sure that they're on the right package from day one. We invariably don't put the fees up after 12 months or after 24 months or 48 as we are now. We haven't put any fees up for our clients. Once we've taken them on, we have for new clients, but not for ones that we've taken on there. But we've had some clients that have, I'm thinking of one in particular that some of the guys will have seen me work on. There was a guy who came to us, he was a compliance client. He turned around and said he wanted to sell his business. We helped him to develop his business. So we started preparing the monthly management accounts there. We used Spotlight, so we put Spotlight reporting in there for him as well. Receipt Bank. That client developed over a period of years and actually then sold his business. And he sold it for £4 million, so a lot of money. His business was worth nowhere near £4 million. 3 years ago, when we actually started that journey with him, it was worth about £1.5 million, so it's really dramatically changed.
What do you think was fueling the valuation?
It was, to be honest, it was the EBITDA, yeah. So it was actually the profit of the business, and by him actually getting the advice, the consultancy, we're able to increase that. Now, one of the things that I found really, really interesting was he sold it to a PLC. The PLC obviously brought the big solicitors in, it was KPMG, did the due diligence and everything, and I'm thinking, oh no, this is on zero, right? I'm not sure this is going to work, it's Receipt Bank at zero, yeah? The FD actually turned around and said, oh, you use zero, brilliant, fantastic. Just give us the username and password, we'll take it over. I was like, wow, yeah? Really wasn't expecting that at all, because I thought it hadn't reached that level, for want of a better phrase. But it helped to transform his business, to grow his business, to develop it, so that he was making informed decisions at the right time about his business, as opposed to reacting to the accounts being prepared 3 weeks after the month end, or he was on quarterlies to start with. 3 weeks after the quarter date, he ended up within a week of the month he discussed his account.
Do you ever experience so people aren't quite so receptive to your ideas and approach?
Yeah, yeah.
And you know, within your client base?
Yeah, I've still got 2 clients using Sage Line 50. They're probably the biggest pains I've got in terms of clients, if I'm honest. Hopefully I've got one of them moving across. It's actually thanks to Receipt Bank I'm getting them to move across, so thank you for that. I haven't said that. But I can't deliver the same level of service to that client because they've got to email me the back up. Invariably they've done something wrong, which then means I've got to change it, go back out, type the information in because they can't do the updates on their side, or they don't want to do the updates, so invariably we go out, we then update that. And to be honest, the client's paying twice as much as what they would if they moved to a cloud package for us. Yeah,
I think that's a really key point, and that is the fact that the products and services that the entire profession is going to be selling in the next 5 to 10 years is going to shift totally. It is totally going to shift, and it's all about positioning now, and what clients will buy and what they will pay for will be very different. And we've definitely seen the era where cloud accounting was a nice to have. We would say to accountants from 2010, 2015, you know, it was a nice to have, you could improve. We absolutely, every firm we speak to now that's past now. It is inevitable. It is shaping what clients will buy. It's what's available in the market, as Stephen's talking about. And there is no more time to delay. Firms that delay from now on, making the shift, begin to re-examine the products and services, are actually increasing their risk their future revenues, their risk of their business viability. That is now, we've now sort of moved from the nice to have to the definitely essential. And the productivity improvements that are going to come from Receipt Bank and Xero in the years to come are going to change the industry in a really, really big way. And clients will be buying different things, and I think it will be much more the FD style services. And the FD style services actually do go all the way down to sole traders. It doesn't need to be, the FD style service, it has connotations of, you know, a sort of 5 or 6 page MANAC report, which clearly a sole trader is going to not love you for. But the 5-minute conversation at the end of the month of the tax liability we now estimate to be this, you know, you've only put aside so far this, we'd really suggest in the next month you put aside another 400 quid. That's what FD looks like for a sole trader. And that's, you know, that kind of FD advice relationship, the way Stephen's positioned his business, really is required.
Just to quickly touch there on, I remember being the small firm in concert, going to ZeroCon 3 years ago, I think it was. It was the accountants, the Institute of Accountants. Got an email the night before, replied at 1 o'clock in the morning. I'd been out, had a couple of beers. This guy turned around and said, I'm after a Zero accountant. I replied, I'm one of them. Yeah. I'm actually at ZeroCon, just to reinforce the point, I'm a Zero accountant. I'll give you a ring on one of the breaks. So I went out on one of the breaks. There's a guy called Ashley Jardine. He signed up as a client, paid me £199 a month, developed his business. He said he was from Milton Keynes. I went, where the heck's Milton Keynes? When I walked in. Now I know it's roundabout capital of the world. But literally, I walked back into ZeroCon and thought, actually, clients want this stuff. It's not what I want, it's what clients want, yeah? This guy now has developed his business so much that he's actually on Crowdcube right now, trying to raise some money, so it's a bit of a plug if anyone fancies helping him out.
Okay, I guess we'll take a couple of questions. The lady in blue? Black.
Just a quick question. Do you think we'll ever get to the point where startup businesses will come and say, I've heard I should be on Xero, or I heard I should be on Cashflow, because a lot of startups here, they should be on Sage. And I get that quite a lot. At what point do you think that will shift?
I get it every day. Right now, to be
I would
honest.
say it's happening, I think.
I get it every day. I remember hearing Xero, one of the roadshows, someone saying, oh, you wear a Xero t-shirt, you're cool and great to work for and all this sort of stuff. It actually happened to me, and it's happened to me. It's because my phone is blue, right, literally. Someone turned around, I was talking to someone from Xero, and he went, are you a Xero? Are you work at Xero? I went, no, I want nothing to do. He does though, yeah. But this guy actually turned around and he was starting his business, and it was cool, and he wanted to be associated with a cool brand. It was a bit like Apple, really. Yeah, he wanted to be associated with a brand as opposed to a desktop solution.
Another one, this gentleman again, middle row. Short one, please.
Yeah, sorry. Do you think technology will go too far that it goes around? I had a client who had nothing, absolutely nothing, went onto Sage and he really didn't understand it, got onto Xero, and now he wants his sales analysed in 80 different types of sales, and he's actually lost focus on the business because he's so worried about the types of sales. Do you think that technology will actually do the exact opposite? What it was designed to do is to take off the focus of business people, because they're so not used to it. They want everything now, which is
I don't think that's that rare. Of so many small business people have not really had access to their data, or if they've had access to the data, clearly the data is out of date. And it's not that rare that people do sometimes get a bit too deep into it. But like, you know, people spend too much on Facebook. That's not an admission, it might be, but you know, any technology can be sort of misused, and we do see that happening.
And there's also that classic human behaviour, which I'd be interested to hear accountants' thoughts on this, that people also have this incredible hunger for far more data than they can ever absorb or conceive or act on. Got a view on sort of data blindness, data gluttony?
Totally. Apple Watch, perfect example. Apple Watch, yeah. I bought it. I remember Nelson, where he's at the back there, saying, I absolutely love my Apple Watch. It's brilliant. You must buy one. Everybody I knew had an Apple Watch. I bought one. I then hated it, right? Because it was constantly buzzing. It was constant notification from Receipt Bank, from Xero, from banks, from Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, everything, yeah? I had to turn that off because I've just got too much information. And personally, I'm very aware and very conscious now, and that's probably changed me as an advisor. So when I'm actually talking to clients about implement solutions, I actually tailor what notifications they're going to get and make sure that we don't end up with far too many analysis of sale codes.
Hi, just interested in thinking about the future, and the great advantage of the cloud is that the data is accessible. I understand that Xero are introducing benchmarking, or they're looking at benchmarking, so clients can compare their performance against similar businesses in their own industry to try and improve their profitability. I'm wondering if Receipt Bank can do something similar along costs. You know, you're processing telephone bills, you're processing electricity bills. Is there a way in which you can advise clients on how to reduce their costs and get the best deals and so on? I wonder if that's you can see that happening in the future.
We definitely can. There's funny things about the data, because, you know, even as someone who's in a sort of data processing business, we've got to be careful about putting too much value on it. So Xero's absolutely started down the benchmarking route, and I think it'll be fantastic for some businesses. The only I guess the issue I have with it is Receipt Bank's my third business I've run, and I've assisted quite a few others and sit on the boards of others. In my experience, a business always succeeds or fails on its own ability to execute. And benchmarking, looking at others, looking at competitors, it's normally always a distraction that isn't that helpful. So I'm a bit wary about how far one wants to go with benchmarking. Clearly, if there's good KPIs, you can see what things are doing. That is useful, but it could become dangerously close to the overload of data of what's everyone else doing. Whereas actually, if you just concentrate on executing, you will find success. For us at Receipt Bank, we're less interested in the data, and what we're really interested in is we think cost comparison in about the next sub 5 years, but not too quickly, is going to move to a live activity. So whereas today, there are services out there where you can say, I'm going to compare my telephone bill or I'm going to compare my electricity, but it's very much still a voluntary thing. You've got to go to the service, you've got to provide your bills, you've got to do this. And what we expect is rather than data benchmark, we expect live cost comparison to begin. So in Receipt Bank, providing it also to Xero as well, just this sort of constant alerting. We've looked at the stationery bill, we think you can save here. We've looked at the telephone bill, we think you're overspending, would you like to move? So we think cost comparison is something that becomes live and doesn't need a voluntary act, and indeed might even happen just in the background. It might even be, there's a dynamic, your electricity is switching providers dynamically in the background. So we think that's one thing that's going to come. The other thing we think is going to come, and this is probably a little more than 5 years, is the nature of supplier relationships will change. As all the data moves online, it will be actually you are buying 10,000 screws, but actually there are, we can dynamically see there are 100 other businesses buying 10,000 of the same screws, so you become part of a buying club. But again, not a buying club in the traditional way of I elect to join a buying club and then tell them when I'm making a transaction. It becomes a dynamic thing. If you've ordered this before, if you order it this week, there's enough other people to get you an extra discount, etc. So I think the data around benchmarking is interesting, but I think the changes coming are more profound than that. And I think the really exciting thing about real-time accounting, and the thing we are really excited about in Receipt Bank, is we want to change the whole accountancy profession into basically a profit generator for the client, an unambiguous profit generator. Not some client saying, well, I pay £3,000 a year for my accountant, and yeah, I was told I'll save £3,000 in my tax bill. It'd be, no, I know by using these tools and having someone looking at the data, I am materially better off. That's what we think all these technologies are leading to. That's why we're get up in the morning.
Stephen's given us some examples of both maybe helping accountancy firms to power up and begin to move into the cloud and added value services. Can you think of other innovative examples? Again, we're talking about the future, but it's kind of the innovations people are doing now that will get practices as a whole into this new environment. Can you give us any other examples of interesting kinds of services or adjustments that you've seen accountants using, in your world that they've made?
There's all sorts of interesting things happening. The biggest trend we see beginning is what we call the emergence of factories. So there's no question around the world, we see it in every country now, firms beginning to shed the old ceilings of, instead of aiming for several hundred clients, we see lots saying, no, we can do several thousand, and we're beginning to see that, no, we can take tens of thousands of clients. We can, with these softwares, we can put processes in place that mean we can manage larger teams than ever before, we can monitor client service like never before, and we can scale like never before. So we see things like factories emerging. I'm still amazed how few vertically orientated firms we're seeing. That's still the one that I thought we'd be far further down that road. And I know, I've spoken about it, I know why it's not happening. It's really scary to turn around to 3/4 of your client base today and begin to say to them, whether through your website or whether personally, actually, I'm not very interested in serving you anymore. That's a difficult thing to do as a group of partners and a difficult conversation to have with clients. But that is absolutely a trend that is going to be just enormous. Which firm ends up being the firm for vets in the UK? Which firm ends up being the firms that are specialists in GPs in the UK? And that's absolutely a defensible, huge position. So I think factory is the big one. Vertically orientated firms are still the big one. And there are many others.
Yep, you can take the cloud challenge to find out what kind you might be. We have a question at the back, if the microphone is there.
Oh, hi. Just a little bit of background. I'm not an accountancy expert. I'm a business process expert. I run a company called Treveo. Fascinated with what Michael was just saying about real-time accounting. I'm here on a reconnaissance mission to see whether it's worthwhile my company specializing vertically in the accountancy practice for end-to-end business process automation. I have one problem that I can't seem to get my head around and how I might be able to solve it. I wondered whether you had any ideas, both of you. The seasonality of accounting seems to give some of our clients problems. January the 31st, the time when tax credits are due and so on. Is there any way of spreading that out throughout the year? Can technology help with that in any way? Do you have any ideas?
Our business has transformed from that. Yeah, we used to go into January with a lot of tax returns to do. From day one, we haven't done that. We've used the technology. Year one, it was still painful to a certain degree in terms of we were getting the clients onto the cloud technology. Year two, instead of having to wait for the books and records to come in, you've always got some clients that's going to bring them in November, December, January. We actually went, it's fine, we don't need them because we've set up the bank feeds. We've got Receipt Bank bringing the information in, and we've turned them from being a compliance client into actually we'll do your bookkeeping every month type of client. We charge them for it, obviously, or the efficiencies have allowed us to keep the costs at the same level in some cases. But what it's done is it's transformed the number of tax returns that we've still got to do in the business. We're 4 years on now in terms of that cycle. I don't expect a horrific December or January at all. So much as we'll be discussing September year-end accounts next week. Next Friday we'll probably discuss them and possibly even get them submitted. Yeah, definitely by the week after. Yeah.
I think the core to this is the definition of customer service. And that's the core to this. So when I helped to build the accountancy firm and was working day to day with the partners, and then with my Receipt Bank hat on since then, seeing so many firms, particularly in the UK, define customer service as doing what the client wants. So if the client says, I want to be on Sage 50, or I want to be on Xero, or I want to be on free agents, whatever it is, they will be okay. And if they say, actually, I'm going to dump the stuff on your desk in the last week of January, again, it's perceived as good service to fit in with what the client wants. And what we see around the world of the fast-growing firms like Valued, and this is absolutely true, the faster growing the firm, the more they are dictating to client the process. It's just a direct trend. And again, it's scary for firms that have defined internally service as you do what the client wants, but it is a huge inhibitor to growth. And as I say, the more we've seen firms say this is the process, actually clients are much more susceptible. Not all, there will always be some exceptions, but in the general, clients are happy with it, and the firm begins to fly.
Okay, we're sort of getting towards the end of the last 7 minutes. So if you have questions, let me know and we'll try and put them. But we've raced over this amazing kind of array of terrain, and you barely, we've touched on Receipt Bank and a few other products. How do you keep ahead, keep your finger on the pulse, track what's going on in the market and what you need to respond to? That's just such a huge, I'm trying to cover it as a journalist and I can't keep up, but you're trying to do a day job as serving clients.
We employ technologists in the business. So we've got a guy called David Oliver, whose only job is to look at technology and implement technology. We've had to bring number 2 into that. We've got Eloise in that role now as well. When we became a platinum partner at Xero, we had every man and his dog ring up and say, I've got the world's best add-on at whatever it might be. We didn't have time to do due diligence on all these people. We didn't have time to actually look at them. I mentioned to someone before, I'm a right devil for actually seeing something that looks pretty technology-wise, buying it, implementing it, moving off, and I'm still paying for the thing. Yeah, There's lots of accountants that are doing that. There's far too many who are actually going and buying the pretty shiny technology thing. Yeah? The crucial bit to me now is get somebody in your firm or somebody external to actually identify what is right for your business, what is right for your clients. Don't just go in with one size fits all, because actually the technology will develop, it'll change that much. But I think it's also massively critical to get a close working relationships with the add-ons. So one of the things that Receipt Bank does is the partner lunches. They're absolutely brilliant. Yeah, I've been to probably 4 or 5 now, something like that. Xero do exactly the same. Go to the partner lunches, find out what other people are using, talk to other accountants. In the past, we would never share what we were using because you might pinch the idea about it. Well, actually, there's enough clients out there for everybody. So talk to the add-ons, get a close relationship with them, and talk to other accountants just to find out what they're using.
I think if you're thinking about this question, you're in a good place. That's the key thing. The vast majority of the profession is still got their head in the sand around technology. So I would absolutely agree, Stephen, of hiring someone is fantastic. But if you're literally just thinking about which tools should I be using, you're almost certainly in a very, very good place. Clearly, you have to be deploying some of them, not just thinking about it. But if, I do sort of watch the forums on Accounting Web and things like that, and it always amazes me just how many firms are absolutely we're still doing things the old way, we're happy with that. And, as much as, when I try to intervene in some of the discussions, inevitably, because I'm a software vendor, I'm seeing as being a salesman, I'm seeing as being biased. And actually, what I think I'm doing is trying to help. I'm trying to help no, the status quo is a terrible place to be right now. As long as you're deploying new tools, you don't have to deploy them all. You don't have to deploy the latest and the best. But as long as you as a firm have a curiosity and an ambition to update your processes, you're in a fantastic place. And that's where most firms aren't. And the unpleasant fact is the reason so many firms are going to flourish and build massive franchises is going to be at the expense of those that don't have that curiosity. That's the consolidation we are just beginning to see.
Not so bleak, but challenging landscape you paint a picture of. Just before we wind up, at the beginning when you were sketching out the kind of factors you thought were affecting the practice, you mentioned both HMRC sort of opening itself up, you thought, to cloud developers, and you mentioned the sort of advent of kind of the banking industry going in a similar direction. Could you have you thought out about the kind of detailed impact that might have, and could you paint a picture for what impact those two trends will have on the accountancy practices?
Sure. So HMRC have been quite naked in their intention, and the rest of the world's tax authorities are watching them. And what HMRC want is tax every month. Just like PAYE, they want corporation tax, they want VAT, they want all their taxes collected every month. They don't want to be, I think it was this week or last week, tax receipts were down, particularly corporation tax receipts were down for August. Cue headlines across the press of, the deficit again. And what HMRC want is as regular as possible collection of tax. They're looking at cloud accounting and thinking, this is amazing. Suddenly there are no excuses for not being able to have visibility of tax receipts and collection of tax receipts on a more regular basis, and they've picked monthly as their aim. And the rest of the world is looking at all the other tax authorities around the world and thinking, that's a great idea. So that's a trend. That's not going to stop now. So that is what HMRC are going to do. They are going to try and move everyone sort of further into the cloud because that benefits them. And of course, we think it benefits them and doesn't have negative consequences for other people. So that's HMRC's aim. Banks' aims are a little more ambivalent about this technology. Both the Treasury here and the EU are forcing them to open up. And actually, for banks, it is incredibly scary what's about to come. There's the way that something like Receipt Bank plugs into Xero is by a technology called an API. You can forget the acronym. If you think of it as like plugging a DVD into a TV player, it's the same thing. It's just a plug. So Receipt Bank plugs into Xero. What's going to happen is all the banks are being forced to have APIs. And what that's going to mean is basically there's going to be this huge fragmentation in banking. And it will allow Snapchat to become the bank for teenagers. It will allow Facebook to become the bank for students. HSBC and UBS will fight hard to retain the affluent individuals. We will see specialist banks for landlords of buy-to-let properties and things like that. We're going to see this huge fragmentation of banking. And what they offer within that will vary. Some of them will move more heavily into lending, like the buy-to-let examples. Some of them will move into peer comparison. So if you think of a Snapchat bank for teenagers, it's going to be all about your friends are buying these tickets or your friends are going to this gig. You know, are you missing out? You know, so the whole definition of what a bank is going to change hugely, and it's going to change for small businesses. And I'd love to give lots of examples, but I actually haven't worked it out yet.
So Stephen, you know, with that scenario, you know, how could you, you know, can you think of things you can do to future-proof your firm to survive in the Snapchat bank, teenage bank scenario, or more the SME? You know, have you?
Truthfully, I don't even know what Snapchat does. I don't see the point, yeah. I actually had this discussion with a client on Saturday. I'm going, what is the point of it?
So even experts like Stephen can
I've turned
struggle
into my dad.
Again, you know, I should be sending advice by Snapchat
We
to
should
clients.
That's an idea. I do Instagram. So I think one of the things there is we employ younger people, right? I've just turned 40. I'm the oldest in our business. I like that, right? I've become the old man in the grey suit that gets wheeled out every so often now to have a consultancy meeting with a client. We employ young people, and the young people understand the technology.
Have a curiosity.
Yeah. They want to actually get involved in this technology. They have the desire. In fact, they demand it. Yeah. And if you don't do it, then they're not interested. They're away. Which is why I want to go back to the colleges and actually get the good people from day one. Which is why we've got a very close relationship with the colleges now. And we're doing what we're doing there with the accreditation.
Excellent. Well, great piece of advice, and thank you very much. And, you know, on behalf of the kind of greying figures here, Michael accepted. You know, if you approach it right, you don't have to be young. But I do like that idea of staying connected with developments, and so thank you for connecting us with that, Michael. Thank you very much, everyone. Stephen, if you could pass me the clicker, I should have been clicking this all the way through. These were the takeaways we were trying to address during the day, but I think they're in your book. I hope you've taken great notes. As I say, this is on video, so hopefully you'll be able to refer back to it, because I think there's a lot of really interesting information that's come out of that, both about the wider landscape and practice. So I'd like to thank both Stephen and Michael for this.